Hi everyone, Shirin here and welcome back to Video Editing 101. Today, get excited because we're talking all about keyframes. But before we dive in, make sure to jump into the chat and let me know where you are tuning in from. So let's go into the chat and let's see who we've got today. So we've got Cody Bear, hello. Hello Vikram. It is so nice to see familiar faces in the chat, always so exciting. Let's see, who else do we have? We've got Paco. We'll just give the chat a sec to refresh. You know, it's a little bit slower on my end than it is in real time. So we'll just give this a sec. Let's see. By the way, let me know in the chat how the weather has been where you're at, because in LA, it's been gray and cloudy for the past, I want to say 5 days. And today, finally, the sun came out and I'm so excited about it. I love having the sun. I realize I'm not the kind of person that can deal with cloudy weather. It's just not my thing. All right, so the chat seems to be lagging a bit on my end. So we'll just hop into Premiere. And as you all are trickling in, just let me know in the chat where you're tuning in from. And I'll just keep popping in back and forth as we do this. So let's hop into Premiere and I'll show you what we're going to be working on today. So over here in Premiere, you'll see I already have some clips imported into my timeline, and I'm just going to show you kind of what we're doing with the keyframes. So we have these really cool animations going on with the text where you see that they are animated, and we're basically going to be animating text and images and video with keyframes. So let me just play that again in case it was playing a little bit choppy for you. There we go. What keyframes are. So keyframes are essentially properties that you can just really, what's the best way to describe this? It's like, let's go to the effect controls. So you see how you have all these different properties in here? The different lines that have the stopwatch icons next to them are properties that you can add keyframes to. So essentially the keyframes allow you to really dial in those properties and set them to a very specific setting at that point in time. So for each frame, you can add a new keyframe if you wanted to move it around, for example. Let's say you want to change around the position. You want it to start and end at a different point. You can add keyframes to tell Premiere where you want the animation to start and end, and it'll do that. So that's essentially what a keyframe is. So let me just pop on over to the chat real quick. I see it's updated for me. Cody says it's been rainy in Oregon. Happy about it. We really needed it after the heat wave this summer. You know, we actually did need it too. I wish it rained a little bit more because California could for sure use the rain as well. And I also see we've got Sirtak in the chat. Hello. All right, so back to keyframes. So what we're going to start off with is just a very basic text keyframe. So let's go over here to the demo sequence, and you'll see I have all my clips in here as well, and I already have some text added. So this one currently does have keyframes added to it, and we're just going to remove those, and I'll show you how to add those back in. So I'm going to press delete just to get rid of those keyframes. And I'm going to press that stopwatch icon to just remove all the keyframes. So right now, let me just bring back this text so that you can see it. And I'm just going to zoom into the timeline a little bit more so that you can really see what is going on in the timeline. All right. So over here, we have some text. And you see if I bring down the position, you'll see that text. So what I want this text to do is start from out of frame and then come into frame in a straight line. So what I'm going to do is actually start with the end point and then work backwards. You can do it either way. It doesn't matter. This just makes it easier for me to know what my end point is going to be, and then I'll move it out. So I'm going to go to the point where my hand stops moving. You see how it's going down like this right now? So I'm going to keep scrubbing over until I get to the point where that motion ends. So to make sure that that is the exact frame that I want the keyframe on, I'm going to tab back and forth using the left and right arrow keys to just see where that frame ends. So I would say maybe about right here is where I want it to end. So now I'm going to just change the position of the text that says keyframes, and I'm going to bring it over here. And if you're wondering how to add text, let me show you. So you see this T icon right here. This is the type tool. So if you click on it and then you click right here in your program monitor, you can now type whatever you want. So right here, I'm just going to put text goes here. And if you want to change the properties, what you can do is press Command A, and I've now selected everything. And we can now go over to the graphics workspace. So over here, if we go to edit in Essential Graphics, you can see that we can now change our text. So right now we can change the fill, we can add a background. So let's just add a background to this. And I'm gonna make this white. And then we'll make the fill black. And then we can also change the font if we wanted to. So let's change it to Termina. And now what I'm going to do is just change the position of it. So let's say we want it somewhere like here, for example. I can do that. And then if you want to make everything in all caps, you can press this icon right here, the double T's, and now it will make everything all caps. So that's how you can add text. I'm just going to get rid of that. So I'm going to go over here and just press cut. All right. So now let's just work with that keyframe text that we originally had. So now that we know this is the endpoint, I'm just going to toggle the position a little bit more to really dial it in to where I want that animation to end. And let's just go back to my workspace so you can see everything a little bit more clearly. All right, so this is where I want that animation to end, right? So to add a keyframe, all you have to do is press this stopwatch icon right here. If you hover over it, it'll say toggle animation. So I'm going to press that, and now I have made a keyframe. And how you know you've made a keyframe is this little diamond icon will appear right here. So that's a keyframe. So now what I want to do is just scrub back over to the beginning of this clip where I'm pulling this text down. So somewhere around here, I know that I want this text to be out of frame so that when I make a keyframe, it'll go in this straight line down. So I'm going to change the position again, and I'll just bring it up. And you'll notice that as I'm changing the position, it added another keyframe right here. So this indicates that we have now changed that position, and Premiere has made a keyframe for that. So now if I play this back, you'll see we should have text moving in a straight line down. And that went a little bit too quick. So let's play that again so you can see. I'm just gonna bring this out a little bit just so you can see that it is indeed going in a straight line. It's a very quick animation, so I just want to make sure you can see it. So let's play that again. All right, so now you see it is going down in that straight line, right? So now let's keep editing that a little bit. I'm just going to press Command Z to bring that back to where I wanted that out point at. So let me just zoom in right here. The next thing we want to do is add some easy ease to our keyframe. So essentially what that means is it's going to allow our animation to look a lot more smooth. And when you're animating, this is something really important to keep in mind, whether it's text or images or whatever it may be, having that smoothness added to your keyframes will really allow everything to just look and feel a lot more natural and alive. It takes your animations to the next level. So the way that you can do that is by right-clicking on your keyframe, and you're going to go down to temporal interpolation. And then down here, you'll see you have two options, ease in and ease out. So here is where it might get a little bit tricky. So for your ending keyframe, you always want that to be ease in. And for your beginning keyframe, you want that to be ease out. And I know that might be a little bit confusing for you. You're like, Shirin, that makes no sense. It should be in and out. Like, that's just the logical thing, right? And I totally get it. I've thought that too, but it's actually the other way around. And the reason for that is because you want to think about this as, so the first one is ease out, right? So you want to think about this as you are easing out of your normal text and into the animation, into the keyframe. And then for the end, you are easing from that keyframe into your normal text. That's how I think about it, and that just really helps me. If you have any other suggestions for things that help you, let me know in the chat, because I know everybody learns differently, but that explanation just seems to really click for me. All right, so let's go and add these keyframes. So just to make sure, I'm going to select this keyframe right here. I clicked on it and it turned blue, so now I know that has been selected. I'm going to right click, go to temporal interpolation, and then ease out. So now you'll see it has changed from this diamond icon into more of this hourglass sort of shape. So that's how you know you have added an easy ease effect to your keyframe. So let's do the same thing for this next one right here, the out keyframe. So I have it selected. I'm going to right click, go to temporal interpolation, and then ease in. And now that has also changed into this hourglass icon, and we know we have added an easy ease to it. So now if we play this back, you'll see it's smoother, and it might go quick. So if it does, I'll just bring it out a little bit so you can really see what's going on. Let's take a look. All right, way too quick. So let me just drag this out a little bit just for the sake of being able to see what is going on. All right, let's take a look. So you see how at the end of the animation especially, you can really tell it's kind of going down in an eased way. Like it's not just from point A to point B just going at the same pace. It's slowing down a little bit at the end, and that really helps to bring the animated look to life. So let's just play that back one more time just so you can really see. You see that? It just really at the end right there. So that is what we want. And I'm just going to take this now back to the original point that I had it at by pressing Command Z. All right, so let's take a look at this one last time. Cool. So let's pop into the chat. Let me know how you're feeling about keyframes. Have you used them before? Are you excited about this? I'll show you in a sec how to do even more fun things with keyframes, but those are just the basics, you know, just adding keyframes and easy ease. That alone, if you don't know anything else, if that's all you take from this, you're already ahead of the game. So let's take a look at what's going on in the chat. So we've also got 80 Greer here. Hello, welcome. 80 says, howdy folks, I'm originally from Brooklyn, so I'm a Mets fan. Why are you putting the crying face? Well, there's nothing wrong with being a Mets fan, is there? I don't know. I'm not really a sports person. I think that's fine. Uma Korn says, yeah, always confused me the first time I used Premiere and After Effects. Totally, right? I've been there. I get it. It can be a little bit confusing. You're like, wait, shouldn't it be ease in and ease out for the in and out key points? Like, but no, it's flipped. If you can just think about that, just remember that it's flipped. That's another way to be thinking about it and keeping that in mind. What else? Let's see. We've also got Norsh in the chat. Hello. She's saying, if something makes no sense or is weird or is crazy, I'm in. Hashtag team crazy. Love it. You're gonna love keyframes. They're a little bit crazy. They can get crazy. So you're in the right spot. What else do we have going on in the chat? Let's see. Codier says, grr, Mets. Listen, is there something about Mets I should know? I really don't know. Let me know in the chat. But let's go back to keyframes. So the next thing we're going to be doing is a little bit more fun. So what we want to do is we're going to have this hello text come in. And you see, this is a really fun way to just add some personality to your video. I'm basically pretending, let me just take off this text layer so you can see what the video by itself looks like. I'm pretending to wait for this text to come in. and it's a little bit shy. It's not coming in. So then finally it comes in and we see it. It stays for a little bit on screen, and then I push it away. Goodbye. So let's add back in that text. And let's start keyframing. So the first thing I want to do is have it be positioned out of frame. We don't see it. So I'm going to select this text layer right here, the hello one, and we are going to change the position. So let's go up here and let's bring it out maybe somewhere to here, and then I'm just going to take it out of frame. So we'll just keep going up, 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 somewhere around there. So now let me just scrub through and see when this should start coming in. So around here, it should start coming in. So I'm going to set a keyframe for right there. And then let's scrub forward a few frames. We'll just keep going. And now the frame that I want to land on is when my finger stops pointing. So I'm just going to keep going back and forth using the left and right arrow keys to make sure that I am at the exact frame I want to be at. So I'm just going to keep going right a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go back left. Boom, boom. Right around here is when my finger kind of stops moving. So I'll set a keyframe for here. I want to bring back in that text. So we'll bring this down and then over to the right a little bit. So somewhere like there. And let's just take a look at this and we will see what that did for us so far. All right, cool. So it comes in, looks good. We can always go back in and toggle this as needed, but I'm just going to get some base keyframes in there and then we can go and make some fine-tune adjustments. So let's keep going. The text stays on screen here for a bit. So I'm just going to keep going until I find the point where I'm pushing that text out. So let's use the arrow keys again, and we are just going to find the frame around right here before I hit that text with my hand. So about here, I would say. So I'll go back one frame, and then I'm going to add another keyframe right here without changing any of the parameters. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want the point from this keyframe, the second one that we added, to this third one now to just remain in the same position. I don't want it to move. So I'm just going to add keyframes to make sure they are going to stay in place. And then we are going to tab forward. We'll do maybe one keyframe, and then we will push this out. So right here, we'll just keep pushing. So now it is out of frame. And this might be a little bit too quick, that one frame keyframe difference, but we can see what that looks like and we can adjust if needed. So let's take a look. Okay, maybe a little bit too quick. So let's just zoom in and let's adjust that keyframe. So I want to move this third keyframe that I added. So I'm going to go back maybe one frame. We'll try that out and we'll see how that looks. And since this is all going to be a really quick sort of animation, another way that I can look at this is just by toggling over and taking a look at what this is looking like without pressing space to play it, since it's going so quick. So that seems all right. Now let's just press space and play it back in real time and see how it's looking. Okay, so it looks pretty good to me. What we can do now is start to really fine-tune everything. So let's just take one more look. And I'm gonna just bring this back over so I can see the keyframes. All right, so I will press play. Okay, so I know right off the bat that that hello is coming in a little bit too slow for my liking. I want to make it a little bit quicker. So let's do that. I'm going to go back over and let's just keep scrubbing forward. maybe I want to move this keyframe over just a few frames, or just one frame. We'll see how that looks. So let's press play. All right. So another way that you can change how fast these keyframes are going is by pressing down onto position. And you'll see we have now opened this new area where you're essentially seeing another form of these keyframes. So if you see right here, you have these tiny little handles. What you can do with that is adjust them. So you see I'm making curves right now. This is going to change how fast our keyframe is going from keyframe to keyframe. So I'll play this back and I'll show you what that looks like. So you'll see right here where this graph is going up, this is the slower part of the animation. So as we watch this back, this part's pretty slow, then it starts to pick up as our curve increases. So the tail end of the animation right here is getting quicker, and the beginning is slower. It's basically like speed ramping into the keyframe. So you can keep toggling this. We can keep changing this around. So let's take a look at what something like this will look like. All right, so that looks pretty good to me. Now what we can do is we'll just keep going towards the end. I'm just going to keep pressing play and we'll see if I want to change anything. All right, so the end looks pretty good to me. It goes up pretty quickly. Next thing we want to do is the whole easy ease shebang. So right here, you'll see if we go to temporal interpolation, we are going to do ease out. And then for this next one, we're going to go to temporal interpolation and change this to Bezier. And then we'll just keep going. For this third one, we're going to go to temporal interpolation, also Bezier. And if you're wondering what the difference is between linear and Bezier, it's basically, think about linear as a straight line and Bezier as a curve. So that curve, the Bezier, is going to allow you to have a smoother looking animation. Instead of it being just in a straight line, it has a little bit more flow to it. So that is what we want. So we're going to make sure to have that selected. Now for this last keyframe, what you want to do is right click, go to temporal interpolation, and then ease in. Remember, the first keyframe is always going to be, oops, I think I selected the wrong keyframe. Let's just zoom in right here. All right, so I'm going to make sure to select the last one and then do ease in. So just remember, the first keyframe that you add in, you always want to set that to ease out, and then your last keyframe is going to be set to ease in. So now let's take a look at this whole animation and see what it's looking like. You see how smooth that is? Love it. So good. Okay, so now that you know kind of the more advanced things about keyframes, let's move on to something a little bit more complicated. I don't want to say complicated because it's really not. It's more or less what we've been doing, but it's just adding one more element to add some pizzazz. So for this one, we are going to be grabbing this text, bringing it up, and then moving it around. And this was so funny to me because when I was editing it back, I was like, I really look like Salt Bae. It was not even intentional. I don't know how this happened. My hand was just automatic in Salt Bae mode, but we're going with it because why not? So we are doing the Salt Bae edit. We're going to be adding some text and then flicking it away. So before we start this, let's pop back into the chat and see what's going on. David says, I'm late to the show, but looking forward to this. Hey, David, no worries. If you want to watch the beginning again, you can always watch the replay and catch up, but welcome. Glad to have you. Arturo says, maybe hello text could bounce a little when it lands. Yeah, totally. Feel free to just take these concepts and build onto them. I'm basically just showing you basics here to show you what you can do with keyframes, but like, the creativity that you have is the limit. You know what I mean? Like, there is no limit. You can add whatever kind of animations you want. The bouncing would be also a really cool way, or you could even make keyframes to have the text expand a little bit, like a few keyframes to have the hello text get a little bit bigger and then back to its original size. That could be another cool thing to do as well. Steve says, this takes me back to my Flash dev days. Well, I hope that's a good thing. I hope it's like, what's the word? Like reminiscent. I'm really blanking on the word. I don't know what the word is. You know what I mean? Like remembering good times. All right, so let's edit this Salt Bay text. So what I want to do is first pick it up, right? So the first thing I want to do is add a keyframe to establish our starting position. So let's just scrub forward and see when I start to pick this up. So about around here is where I really start to pick it up. So I'll add a keyframe right here, and I'll have that be my starting position. So I'm going to press the stopwatch icon right here. Steve says nostalgic. Yes, thank you. That is the word I was looking for. Absolutely. Nostalgic. Yes. All right, so we have added our first keyframe. Let's scrub forward a little bit, and around right here where I start to pick this up, I'm going to now move the text. Whoa, not move the timeline, just move the text. All right, so let's change the position a little bit. I'm going to move it over to the right, and then we will move this up just so it kind of looks like that word is really attached to my hand with a transparent wire, essentially. So we'll just keep scrubbing forward, and we will continue to add keyframes every so often. So right here, I'll add another keyframe. And if you're wondering why I'm choosing these specific points to add keyframes, just know that in this scenario, there's really no rhyme or reason as to why I'm choosing these points. I'm just kind of adding in some keyframes. So as I'm doing this movement, it looks smooth. Because if I go from here to somewhere around here, and I add a keyframe, it'll just look a little bit jumpy, at least for me. That's my preference. I like adding more keyframes for something like this, just to ensure that it's a really smooth animation. So let's play this back, and let me see if I can show you what I mean. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of these two middle keyframes to really emphasize this. So let's just press and delete these and take a look at this. You see how it just kind of, it's going in a straight line. It's not really following the path that my hand is trying to take it on. That's why I like adding in more keyframes, so you can get really exact with the positioning. So let me just press Command Z to bring this back in. I'll press Command Z one more time to get rid of that. All right, so let's keep going, and let's keep adding some more keyframes. So we'll go up around here, and we will change the position yet again. And we'll just keep going. And then for here, I'm also going to adjust it ever so slightly, and I'll bring it over to the right. And then now I'm going to bring it down a little bit and over to the right. And then it just kind of sits there for a beat, right? So I'm going to set another keyframe around right here without changing the position, just to really lock in that position and make sure it's not moving. So that now when I add in my next keyframe, it will start from this point, basically. Like, it'll look like the animation is starting from here as opposed to starting from this keyframe. If I didn't add in this keyframe, it would just go straight from this position that it's at right now to flying out over here. But I want it to sit for a beat, so that's why I'm adding this extra keyframe. So let's grab forward, and what I'm going to do is change this position, and then also we're going to change the rotation. So what I'm going to do is go back one keyframe so that we can make sure our rotation is set to 0 when we begin. So if you do want to toggle between your keyframes, by the way, you can do that by pressing this arrow icon right here. This will go to your previous keyframe. That way you don't have to scrub on the timeline and try to get really exact with it. If you are scrubbing here though, you'll notice that when this icon right here turns blue, that indicates that is where a keyframe has been added. So as we're scrubbing through here, take a look. When it grays out like that, you're not on a keyframe. But like this, you're on a keyframe. Not on a keyframe, on a keyframe. Not on a keyframe, on a keyframe. But, you know, just to make your life easier, just toggle back and forth. That way you don't have to deal with trying to make sure you're precisely on whatever keyframe you want. And this is a really great way to just pick keyframes. And let's say you want to add another keyframe. In our scenario, the rotation, you'll now know exactly which keyframe your other property is set to a keyframe to, so you can set another keyframe for another property. So for this one, we will set our rotation to 0. I'm going to press the stopwatch icon, and we have now added a keyframe for our rotation set to 0. And this is when the text is right here before I start flicking it. So next, we will toggle over to the right to go to our next keyframe. And this is when I want to start changing around the rotation. So let's just mess around with the rotation. We'll do something maybe like this. And you'll see that it's now not where we want it to be, right? But that's a really easy fix. If we go back to our position, we can adjust our position and bring it back down. So we'll just bring it around here. And we'll bring it over. And something around there. So now, if we play this back, I'll just scrub through it. You'll see it is now rotating with my hand. So let's just play all of this from the beginning before we keep going. And by the way, if you're wondering what all these blue dots are on the screen, basically when you have the vector motion selected, you can see the path of your keyframe. So that's all that is. So let's just press play. Cool. So you see we have the first little flick. Now we got to go in and add all the other flicks. So let's do that. So we will keep going. So this is where our last keyframe was at. Now let's just scrub forward and we'll see what the next motion is. So it's going up a little bit. So maybe I'll just add another keyframe just to have it move up. So let's do something maybe like this. And you'll see as I'm changing the properties, it's adding another keyframe for me. So let's also rotate this just a little bit. Maybe we'll do 17 or 18. Let's do 18 for the rotation, and we will just make some more fine-tune adjustments to the position. All right, so something like that looks good to me. So let's keep scrubbing forward. And next, you'll see it is coming back down. So let's bring this back down to 0 for the rotation. And then for the position, we will just bring this up a little bit. Something like this. So let me just scrub backwards and let's make sure that's looking good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this keyframe right here, this third one from the end, because I want it to be a little bit smoother when it's going from that initial position to the first flick. So what I'm going to do is just select this, and you'll see it turns blue. That's how you know you've selected it. And I'm just going to press delete to get rid of that. And I'll do the same thing for the rotation. So now let's just keep toggling. All right, so that looks smoother to me. I like that. So next, we'll just keep going and we will add in some more keyframes. And fun fact, if you do want to copy and paste keyframes, you can do that. So let's say we know we want this to keep going back and forth, back and forth. What I can do is just select these right here by clicking and dragging over them. And then I can press Command or Control C to copy. I'll scrub forward and press Command or Control V, to paste. And now we have pasted in those keyframes. AD is asking, is there a hotkey for toggling between keyframes? So the way that you can do it is by just pressing these icons right here to go to the previous keyframe or the next one. That's a really easy way to do it. Noor says, somebody's got to introduce an original way of adding sugar or pepper. Yeah, you know, somebody really should. We need to spice things up a little bit. Salt Bae is a thing of the past now. Even though it's not, like, his restaurant's still very trendy, right? I still see it all over social. All right, so let's keep going and we will continue adding in these keyframes. So right now, this is set to this starting position. It goes back out, goes back in. So let's say we want to fine tune these keyframes, the ones that we just copy and pasted. I'm going to zoom in right here a little bit so I can see things a little bit more clearly. And let's just scrub backwards until we get to the exact point that we want this Salt Bae to go out to. So this actually, in our case, works great. We're going to go back to the end position now, somewhere like here. Yeah, right there. You know what? That actually looked great. Yay. But if you do want to fine tune these, let's say, for example, the ending part right there ended on this frame, you can just take these keyframes right here, select them by clicking and dragging over them, and then you can just bring these both out and align them to wherever your playhead is at. That way you know it's exactly where you want it to be. I'm just going to press Command-Z to bring that back, and we'll just keep copy and pasting our way over until we finish out this animation. So pressing Command or Control-C and then Command or Control-V to paste. So now let's see, we might have to fine-tune these ones. Wow, this is spot on. I am so impressed. All right, we'll keep going. We're going to look for the end position of my hand right around here. Okay, so this one we will definitely have to change around a little bit because you'll see as I'm going, the text isn't perfectly aligned with my hand where it should be. I want that Salt Bae to be a little bit more centered. So what I'm going to do is change up that position a little bit. So I'll bring it over and then I will bring it down. All right, so something like this looks good. And let's just see, how many more flicks do we have? Oh, okay, from here we start just flicking it off, completely getting rid of it. Cool. So let's go back to our previous keyframe. I'm going to press this arrow icon right here. And now we will scrub forward. And I know I'm going to flick it out. So what I'll do is I'll start with this keyframe right here. This is the keyframe where it's kind of at that rotated position. So I'm going to press Command-C to copy, and then I'll go back over here. I'll press Command-V to paste, just so we kind of have a reference point, and we can adjust the keyframe from here. So let's toggle over, and I will, oh, you know what? It actually holds for a beat before we flick it off. So let's actually get rid of this. We'll come back to that. I'm going to get rid of this last keyframe that I just added in, and I'm going to keep scrubbing forward until I find the moment right before I flick away the text. So somewhere around right here, I would say maybe around here is the last point where I have that Salt Bae. So I'm going to bring this down just so I'm not cutting off my fingers with that text. And then we will add another rotation keyframe right there. So now what we're going to do is flick it away. So let's go back now and we will copy that other keyframe that we had where it's rotated. So just selecting them, Command-C to copy, we'll go over, Command-V to paste. So now that I know this is kind of the general rotation that I want it at, I can start to adjust the position. And I'm thinking I will also adjust the keyframes. So I'm going to select these and I'm going to bring these keyframes over and snap it to where my playhead is at. This is the point where I'm thinking I want it to end for the animation. So let's change the position. We will bring this out and up. And you want to make sure that this text is kind of following the path of your hand. So if I was to flick this in real life, it'd be going out of frame, kind of towards where the corner of the frame is. I don't necessarily want it to go out exactly where the corner is, so I'm going to keep it over to the right ever so slightly, and then I'm just going to bring it up. So maybe something like this. And you know what I'm thinking now, actually? Maybe I will bring this over, because if I was to flick it out, it would actually end up going more towards somewhere like here, right? So I'm going to bring it out and then up. And even though nobody's going to be seeing this end position, it just helps the animation because it's following that path. Like, you just really want to follow through, like sports. Look, I made a sports reference. Yay. All right, so let's see what this is all looking like. Sweet. So it's a little bit choppy for my liking. So we're going to go back in and we're going to do all the easy easing in the world. So let's go back to the beginning. And a really quick way that you can do this, instead of going through and individually just, ease in, ease out, bezier, the whole shebang, you can just click and drag over all of these. Sometimes when I don't want to go in and individually do them, this is what I'll do. And then I will right click, go to temporal interpolation, and I'll just press ease in. And Premiere's pretty smart. Like, if you go over here, you'll see it's already eased out for us, and the last one is ease in. So, I mean, they're all set to Bezier, but it's essentially like, it's keyframing them and easing them for you. So if you really want to make sure that everything, is eased in, eased out, you can right click and then go to temporal interpolation. And for the first and last one, for example, you can change those. So you can go to ease in for the last one. And then let's just zoom in right here. And for that first one right there, we can right click and ease out. And you can do the same thing for the rotation ones as well if you wanted to. I'm just going to leave them the way they are. And we are going to just press play and take a look at this. Much smoother. Love it. Now, you could really fine tune the end right here if you wanted to, where it's flicking the text out. Like, personally, I would spend a little bit more time here and really clean things up, make sure that that text is really aligned with my hand, because, like, look at it, what is it doing right there? But you get the point. I really want to show you how to do other things with keyframes as well, so we're going to keep moving on. And the next thing we're going to be focusing on is animating images. So this is a really fun way to add some personality again to your video. Like, let's say, for example, you're doing a video about lipsticks and you want to introduce this lipstick that you're talking about. Instead of just being like, oh, this is a lipstick, blah, 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 you can have some fun with it and have an image of it come into screen. So what I'm going to be doing is catching this lipstick essentially and pulling it into frame and then pushing it away. So we will start adding some keyframes for that. But first, I do want to pop into the chat real quick. So let's see. Norsha's saying, is it possible to view the portion you're working on bigger? Yes. So if you do want, wait, are you talking about like the program monitor or the keyframes? Because I'll show you both. So if you want to zoom in to your keyframes, right down here, you see where you have this little slider. If you zoom in, you can now expand the timeline for the keyframes, and it'll make it easier to look at. Now, right now it's looking a little bit tight, right? Let's say you want to add some more space. If you hover over this area right here, you'll see this icon comes up where it's two lines and then arrows pointing to the left and right. You can now expand this out. So now you have expanded this area, and you can do the same thing right here. So let's see if it'll cooperate. Okay, it's not. Let me just bring this over. There we go. So now you can really expand on the area where the keyframes are at. And this can make it a lot easier for you to see what you're doing. So let me just go back to this one. All right, so like that, you see how you've expanded the timeline? This makes it a lot easier to just really see everything in there. So you can zoom in, zoom out. So that's how you can do that for keyframes. But let's say you wanted to see a larger screen, like a preview. So if I bring these back over, I can now make my program monitor larger. So this will allow it to take up more space on screen. You can bring this down. That's one way to make it larger. And something else that you can do is right now you see how it's set to fit. So this is how zoomed in your program monitor is. So if I set this to 10%, it's really tiny. And I can keep going up. If I do 100%, this is 100, but in my case, it's cropping my frame a little bit. So what I could do is bring this down just so I see more of the screen, or the frame rather, or you can set it to fit, and this will just automatically adjust the positioning of it so that no matter what you scale this to, it will always fit in there. So yeah, really fun, quick, easy way to do that. And by the way, if you're wondering how you can reset your workspace, let's say you've made all these adjustments and you've made this wider now, and it's just looking a little bit chaotic to you. What you can do is go back up here and you can press these 3 lines, that icon right there, and you can press reset to saved layout. So now this will go back to how I originally had my workspace. But in this scenario, I do want to get rid of some things. So I'm just going to click right here and press close panel to get rid of the source monitor. And I will also close essential sound because we don't need that right now. So now we are back to where we have started. I also saw something in here about, let me see if I can find the comment. It was about being intimidated. Here it is. I still find Premiere and After Effects very intimidating because of the so many views and controls. Totally understand. I feel you. It can be really intimidating, especially when you're first starting. You're like, there's so much going on. But something to keep in mind is that there's always multiple ways to do something in Premiere or After Effects, or really just the whole Adobe suite. So don't worry, if you're seeing me do something one way, and you're like, oh, but it can also be done this way. It probably can. There's so many ways to do the same thing. So don't be intimidated, just practice, start messing around with it. And the more you're in here, familiarizing yourself with everything, the more comfortable you're gonna start to feel. So let's go on over to this lipstick and we will just animate this real quick. So I'm going to go over to Effect Controls. I will scale this down a little bit because it's a little bit too big right now. And let's have it start out of frame. So I'm gonna speed through this because y'all already know the drill. You know what to do. So I'm gonna bring this out and up somewhere around here. I'll add a keyframe. I'll keep going around here. I want it to come in. So we'll bring that back around here. And then let's see, kind of stays for a little bit and then we push it out. So we'll have this stay and then we'll push it out. So let's take this up a little bit and then out to the left, something around here. And that's just a really rough edition of keyframes, but let's take a look at that. Okay, so it's going out a little bit too slow for me, so I'm gonna toggle down this position and let's choose these keyframes just so we can bring up the handlebars. And I will actually expand a little bit just so you can see a little bit more clearly. So let's zoom in and let's toggle with this right here. Let's say maybe we want it to speed up, something like this. So let's play this back. And I do want to speed up the animation. So in addition to having this curve right here to really speed ramp it up, I'm also going to bring in the keyframe just so it goes out a little bit quicker. And maybe I'll have it start closer to the endpoint. So I'll just bring in that third keyframe. And let's play this back. Cool. Looking a lot better already. So as you can see, with these very minor adjustments, you can really change the whole dynamic of the keyframes that you're adding and really make the whole effect look seamless. So let's take a look again from the beginning of this clip and see what this is looking like. Very cool. Love it. So the last thing that I want to show you is how you can add keyframes to videos. So right now I have this video clip right here. And if I just turn this off, you'll see I also have this clip. So let's say in this clip, I want to talk about this foundation that I have on my face. And I want to show you a video of what this bottle looks like for the foundation. So I want to have this clip come into frame. So what I'm going to do first is crop this clip because I don't want the whole clip to come in. So I'm going to go over to effects and I'm going to search for crop. And you'll see that crop shows up within video effects and then it's under transform. So I'm going to select crop and then drag this to my clip. And then I have added it on, and how you can tell that it's been added is by going to effect controls. And then if you go down, you'll see you have now this crop effect added. So I'm going to crop the right and left of this video, something like that. And now what I'm going to do is change the position. So I'm going to bring this over. You know what? No, let's not move it up. I'm just going to leave that where it's at. I will change it to just bring it right around here. So I know that I want this clip to slide in, right? So I'm going to go, do I have keyframes on this already? Let's get rid of those. Okay, let's move over the position. I'm going to toggle off this keyframe icon just so it's not adding keyframes right now. All I want to do is just make sure that the position is where I want to add. So right here, it's now at the left of our frame. And what I'm going to do is scrub over and set a keyframe because I know ultimately this is where I want it to be. Like I want it to slide in and look like this. Now we're going to go back a little bit and I'm going to change the position and I'm going to have it slide out. So this way, when we play it back in, it'll look like it's sliding in. So like that. And you see it went really quickly. So if you do want to slow down that animation a little bit, you can just drag out these keyframes and it'll have a slower animation. So something like that looks good. And now let's say we want it to also slide out at the end. So I'll add another keyframe. Let me just bring this over. So I'm going to add another keyframe by just pressing this icon right here. Added a keyframe, and now we're going to change the position to have it slide back out. So something like this. And now you'll see if I play this, it has now slid in and slid out. And that looks great. Now, something else you want to keep in mind is this video at the bottom. You want to add another keyframe here so it looks smooth when you are going and adding this first clip in. Like you kind of want that video below it to also be pushed out. So we will go in and we will add some keyframes. Let's say I want it to start moving around here, for example. I'll just add a keyframe. We'll go over and push this out a little bit. And then we'll go to the end. And around here, I'll add another keyframe to just lock in that position, and then we're going to have it move out. So you can just press this right here to reset the parameter and it'll take it back to where it started. And now if we take a look at this, you see it looks really smooth. They both go in and out kind of together, and you can always toggle with how fast you want it to go in and out. And you can also add some easy easing, but that's essentially keyframes in a nutshell. It's really easy to make your images and text and videos come to life with keyframes. So I hope you learned something new. I hope this was exciting. Make sure to stick around because next up we have the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. So definitely stick around for that. It's going to be a fun one. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.